Okay, welcome back to another Words That Kill, and today we are doing the fan favorite death, and we have Morgan as the guest. I hope I pronounced your name right.
Yes.
Um, and I'm going to let her introduce herself, so take it away.
Hi, I'm Ro Morgan. I write supernatural suspense, dark fantasy, and a little bit of horror.
Okay, so today we are talking about the fan favorite death, the one the reader always dreads. It's very polarizing. Have you killed off a beloved character in your books?
I have, and I sobbed my eyes out when she died, and so have my readers.
Okay, so exactly how did the readers react other than the sobbing and apparently putting tear stains on the pages?
They just said that they couldn't believe that Sandy had died and how heart wrenching it was. But most of them understood that it was sort of a necessary death.
Okay, so did you have any adverse reaction from anyone?
No, not that anybody's given me any feedback on. They all like Sandy. She's a young teenage hitchhiker that my protagonist, Sunny, picks up, and who then, because of a encounter with a trucker, was having some medical issues, and Sunny, my main character, had to take her to the hospital. But there's a lot of complicating factors when you're dealing with a vampire in a hospital. So um, they became kind of almost surrogate mother-daughter for each other. So when Sandy left, it was heart-wrenching.
Okay, so why did you decide that particular character had to die?
Well, when I write, I follow the character's story. They have a story to tell, and I see it in video, and that was just a path. When Sandy entered the page the first time, I had no idea that she was going to die, nor did I have any idea how necessary her death actually was for Sunny, the protagonist, and her own journey to find self acceptance and find her path in life. There really didn't seem to be any other way. I never considered that Sandy would live because the story just kind of told that was the way the story went. That there was no other option. I mean, if I sat here and thought about, okay, well, what would happen if Sandy had survived this and lived? What would have the story been? And it would have just that wasn't the story. So I really had no choice but for that scene to unfold and for things to go the way it did because Sunny would have been stuck otherwise in this never ending loop of unhappiness and living a shadow life um, as half of what she should be.
Interesting. So when you created the character, did you expect her to be a fan favorite?
I didn't because when I write, I'm really so immersed in the story, I never think about the fans or the readers. I'm following the characters and their story. And Sandy rapidly became a favorite of mine because she sort of epitomized the happy go lucky teenager, or at least happy go lucky on the surface, even though she'd had kind of a miserable life growing up. And she epitomized for Sunny, the main character, she epitomized humanity, what it was like to be human. And at that point in the story, Sunny was struggling very hard to hang on to what little bit of human she had in herself. And so Sandy was very refreshing in that regard. And as I mentioned, when Sunny picked her up on the side of the road in the middle of the night, I had no idea how their story was going to continue to intertwine, nor how their story together would end.
Okay, so what do you think about that character that resonated with the readers?
I think it's because she represented the piece of humanity that Sunny was trying to hang on to, and she also represented Sunny's lost daughter, the daughter that Sunny, at the beginning of this whole supernatural journey, had lost contact with and had found at one point, but then left again because she couldn't bear to reveal the monster that she feels she is now to her daughter, and felt that her daughter was better off believing that she was dead. And Sandy, through their relationship, kept encouraging Sunny to find her daughter, that her daughter would accept her no matter what, and that she had to finish that part of her journey of reconnecting with her daughter. So it she played a pivotal role in Sunny's growth and acceptance of herself.
Did you ever once think that, no, I don't want to kill this character off, but I'm going to anyway?
No, because I didn't think of her dying until the scene where she died. I'm a complete pantser. I'll know the beginning and I know the end and I know some pivotal points in between, but how we get to those points, I'm never sure. How they're going to resolve, I'm never sure. I follow the character story, and this is where their journey led. And it was an unusual death, and Sunny tried to save her, and she could have saved her, but Sandy insisted that Sunny let her go because she knew that this is what Sunny needed to complete her own journey. And so the character pretty much sacrificed herself to help Sunny further.
So the character's death was a surprise even to you?
Yes. Yes, yeah, that's how this works. I just follow the characters, and their days unfold, and I have a sense of when something has to happen, and it'll pop in my head what has to happen. And I'm trying very hard not to give away any spoilers, but it is an unusual death. It's not a death that most people would ever consider happening to them.
Yeah, so you obviously write about vampires because you mentioned that. But so resurrecting dead characters is probably not a stretch for you. But have you ever brought one back for the readers?
No, I've not, because I haven't had any at this point suffer true death. There's death, and then in the vampire world, there's true death. And true death means immortality is done. You're done. And so we haven't encountered that yet in the series. I have 3 books out in the series. Book 4 is in process, and I know the beginning, I know the end, I know a few things that are going to happen in between, but some of the details I won't know until the character learns. And because I write in first person present tense, that keeps me very locked into the character's head. I don't have the omniscient viewpoint of writing about the character. I am experiencing the character's life with her. So things that surprise her surprise me. I have a scene in one book in which she has just had a horrific fight with her on again, off again lover, and she wanders out to his garden and finds this beautiful sculpture that she had no idea how it got there, when it got there, and I felt the same way when there it was in front of her, and I'm looking over my shoulder going, where did that come from? So it's a very surreal experience writing these books because I'm so deep into the characters that things that surprise them surprise me as well.
Okay, so would knowing a character is a fan favorite influence you in any way, or are you just so into the character and the story that nothing will stand between that and the way it goes?
I don't typically have anybody influence the stories other than my editor may give me some viewpoints on, some tips on strengthening scenes or anything like that. But the story is its own to tell. I am strictly a conduit for that story. And my interpretation of that story may be different than someone else's. But reviving a fan favorite, if that is not part of the story, then that wouldn't happen. And that has nothing to do with feeling that I know more than the readers. I don't. I'm following the story. And the story says that's what happens, and if it doesn't, then it doesn't.
Okay, so would your favoritism towards a character influence you?
It's a possibility, but I'm also one who appreciates tragedy in stories. So if it's going to wrench my heartstrings, I'm okay with that. And I wasn't necessarily thrilled with Sandy's death. I wasn't thrilled when Sunny parted from a favorite character of mine, who I still think she should have stayed with. I just follow her story.
Okay, so do you think authors should consider reader reaction when killing off characters?
You know, I don't, I think the author's number one job is to serve the story as a storyteller. Now, some authors may feel that their number one job is to please the readers, but then you start entering into territory where the story is being manipulated by outside influences that may not necessarily best serve the story, especially because readers don't have the long overall view of the story beginning to end. They don't have the full story arc. Now, unless you're talking about a completed series. Myself as a reader, I appreciate character journeys where I don't feel like it's all predestined. I like the uncertainty of not really knowing what's going to happen. And I like feeling that through the character. If it just feels too orchestrated, it's like some puppet master up there pulling the strings saying, well, I want the story to do this, or, I think this should happen. So I'm going to make that happen. Now you start bringing in, there's a ring of falsity to this story because now it's being manipulated. And I know this sounds very strange, but this is just my own style of writing, and it may work differently for other writers. They may prefer to listen to what fans have to say. And I know authors have done that. They've brought back characters or done something with the character that people thought was lost for whatever reason, death or disappearance, because that's what the fans wanted. I've not been in that position at this point in time. My readers are very invested in my main character and they enjoy experiencing her pain as well as her joys. So I haven't had anybody say, you shouldn't have done that. And even if they did, I would say, well, this is her journey and we are not in control of our journeys at all points. So,
Good point there. Okay, so why do you think some characters resonate with readers more than others?
a well developed character should resonate with some trait within the reader. If you've got a good character who is well developed, who has flaws, who makes decisions you don't agree with, and you're sitting there saying, no, don't do that, you dummy, that is the kind of character that feels real. And so that resonance is some part of that character you connect to because as a reader, you can maybe put yourself in that character's shoes, which is the goal of a well-told story, that the reader should feel like they're in the story, they're part of the story, and this is happening to them, not to some name on a page. And so that's where the resonance happens. I think, especially through the flaws, where you see characters making decisions you disagree with, or you feel a sense of empathy for them because their life has just gone to hell and they're caught up in the storm. And we all know what that feels like at different points in our life, being caught up in a storm of events that are not under our control. And some of those can be amazing, some of those can be tragic. We're along for the ride. I think the whole point of stories is to not only allow people to live vicariously through a character, but also to help broaden their worldview a little bit. And maybe there's things in the character that a person would have never considered because that character is so different from them. Losers. Cold laughter chilled the marrow in Colin's bones. Well, there are no losers among the chosen. Crimson flared once again in her pupils, and this time it spread into her irises, turning her eyes blood red. Her upper lip curled into a snarl. revealing long dagger-like fangs. You have 3 nights, beginning now. Colin parked the BMW in the metro parking lot and took the stairs down into the station 2 at a time. He needed to lose whatever tail might be following him as quickly as possible and wouldn't feel safe until he'd made several transfers on the RER, the Paris commuter train system. You know, this is especially true when you're writing historical and you're trying to consider a historical mindset, which is so different than a modern mindset. So it allows the readers to not only venture into something they would not otherwise have an opportunity to experience, but also to find those threads of connection that make that experience feel more real. So that's where the resonance comes in.
Yeah, definitely. So which kind of characters have resonated with your readers?
Usually with my readers.
Yeah. Which one are some of your characters?
Of course, they like Sunny. She struggles to fit in with this new supernatural world that she's now part of. She has to do things to survive that she hates doing, but she has no choice. They root for her when she has her successes, when she has her small joys, anything from making snow angels the first time she encounters snow with her new senses, to falling in love for the first time as this new creature that she is, to the strength she exhibits when she draws a line in the sand and says, I will not do that, even for you. So I think that they really enjoy that struggle, those choices, and how she comes out on the other side of those choices. And still maintains a sense of her beliefs and her morals without having to sacrifice too much of herself.
Okay, so would you ever consider killing off a main character and really freaking out your readers?
I don't know if I could handle doing that, and it has nothing to do with the readers. I have several main characters, not only Sunny, but we meet a character in the book Watcher, whose name is Nicholas, that if something happened to Nicholas it would just be so heartbreaking. I don't think I could handle it, let alone my readers. There's another character in my book Runner, Taz, that is a reader favorite. And I couldn't stomach something happening to him either. So I don't think that that's a risk in my stories because I couldn't stomach those events happening, even though they might be real, because that happens in real life. People really do die that you care deeply about. But the other purpose of a story is to take you away from real life a little bit. So, no, I don't think I could consider killing off a main character. Certainly supporting characters. Not a problem there.
Yeah, well, I'm sure your readers just breathe a sigh of relief. So, okay, so have you ever killed off a character that was your favorite?
Well, at this point, I've only really killed off. Well, I take that back. There was another character that we know is going to meet his demise, and he was not a favorite. He was kind of a loathsome guy anyway, so I didn't mind him dying. But no, Sandy is the only one that I've really regretted her path. But yet at the same time, I understand the necessity of it.
Okay, so as a reader, which of your favorite characters have been killed off?
Well, I go back to one of the most famous murderers of characters, George R.R. Martin.
Oh, yeah,
I read Game of Thrones, and we had the Red Wedding scene. And the main character that died in that scene, well, that wasn't the first time he'd blown my mind. The first time he blew my mind was in the very beginning of the book, when somebody I thought that was going to be a main character ended up being executed. And I'm like, what? I thought he was a main character. Holy mackerel. And then we get to the Red Wedding. And oh my goodness, I was so blown away by that chapter. I had to go back and read that chapter a second time to see, did he really just kill this guy? And this was far before they ever made the movies. I was reading the books long before the movies were made. or the I'm sorry, the TV series. So yeah, that was a mind blower, and I for chapters like, how could he have killed him? And of course, there was a second character killed, I believe, in that same scene as well. That I was like, well, how could he have killed both of them? Oh my goodness, where's it? It was the first time I can recall where a favorite character, or at least not necessarily a favorite character, but a character I thought played a key role in the story, died. Um, it's been so long since I read the Lord of Rings trilogy, which I did in high school, that I know that when Gandalf confronted the Balrog in the mines of Moria, I know at that point in time we were led to believe he had died. And I'm sure that when my 15-year-old self read those, she was shocked as well. But that's the only other time I can think of where a main character died that I was just tragically struck. So yeah, I'd have to say Game of Thrones. I hadn't encountered blatant murder of main characters before.
Yeah, I think George R. R. Martin has a lot to answer for in as far as reader trauma goes. So yeah. Okay, and now we're at the three questions I ask everybody. Do you enjoy killing off characters or do you struggle with it?
Well, I just circle right back around to the story. If it's part of the story, then that happens. When I was writing the scene where Sandy died, I was sobbing while I was typing it out. I was like, "Oh my goodness, this was horrible." I did not struggle over whether to do it or not because I knew that's what happened, and that's how I had to write it. So struggle, not really. I just follow the story.
But you did warn her a little bit.
She had been warned not to engage in the behavior she engaged in that ended up in her demise. But that doesn't necessarily mean it's it's predestined that she had just been warned. Don't do this. She made the mistake of doing this, and it cost her her life.
Okay, so what's the most well, I think I already know the answer maybe to this, but what is the most creative or memorable death of one of your characters?
One of my characters was since she's the only one who's died so far. I would, well, I mean, I'm going to circle back. Now we're not going to do spoilers. Hers was definitely creative. I have a character in a related novella who thinks he's won a contest, but he doesn't realize that his reward is to join the Queen's Council. And the Queen's Council is a row of big 5-gallon carboy jars on a shelf, wide mouth jars, filled with blood, with heads floating in them. And those heads are vampire heads, and because they're in blood, they're sentient. So he joins the Queen's Council, and that was that's kind of a memorable death, to find yourself for eternity in a jar.
Yeah, I think that one ranks up there with that question I've asked a lot of authors.
That's in my novella, The Games Monsters Play.
Okay, so what's the oddest or most notable thing you've researched in related to your books?
Sunny lives in the forest in the beginning. She hunts in the forest. That's how she survives. And so I did do some extensive research on how you can take down an elk with your bare hands, even if you are a vampire. And I visited the Thule Elk Reserve and visited with the ranger. We went out and looked at the elk. Then he took me into the museum, and they had two bull elk who had died in a fight with their antlers locked. So they had taken part of these elk from like the shoulder forward and stuffed and mounted. What was the shoulder and the upper part of their body? So like, yeah. So it's like they cut off their hindquarters and they mounted them on pedestals with their antlers still locked. And the ranger allowed me to kind of climb up on one and see if I, even though I'm a smaller stature than my character, would be able to reach this elk's nose and be able to yank it around to break its neck. Was this physically doable? And yes, that answered my question. And so somebody larger than me, because my character is taller than I am, would have the reach to be able to do that and bring that nose around. And then he went so far as to give me the atlas and several of the spinal cords, a piece of spine about this long from an elk. And I took that to my physical therapist to make sure that when we wrenched the neck this way, that this is what would snap the spine. So yeah, I've delved very deep into, it wasn't necessarily the death of a character, but certainly how to kill an elk with bare hands.
Yeah, well, was the death of an animal character? So. Okay, so I think we'll
People
wrap
may not
it.
like, but if you're reading horror, come on, it's not a person, so get over it.
Oh yeah, we did our whole other show on killing off animals. So yeah.
Okay.
So I think we'll wrap the interview up here, and tell everyone where they can find you and what books did you have to offer.
Okay. Well, I am on Facebook. I am on Amazon, and it's ROHMORGON with an O, not an A. This is my book, Monster. Here's my name, so you can see how it's spelled. This is the first book in my series. It's actually the prequel. That's followed by Watcher.
Lovely cover.
Third book is Runner. And I'll just mention here on the cover of Watcher, it takes place in Colorado. That's actually Pikes Peak in the background, this mountain right through here, kind of behind her shoulder. Monster, this is overlooking the city of Sonora, which is where part of the story takes place. And then in Runner, we're overlooking the San Francisco Bridge, and part of the story takes place there. Yeah, you can find me online. And my vampires have similarities to other vampires, and there's other traits that they don't. They can see themselves in mirrors, so I don't adhere to all the canon.
I'd like to thank you for being a guest today, and that's it for this episode. So bye for now.
Well, thank you. I appreciate the opportunity.
Hello, my name is Ro Morgan. I'm going to be reading from my dark fantasy novel Runner, Book 2 of The Chosen. The story of a woman's struggle to find both her roots and her destiny. It's Halloween night. The streets and clubs are filled with witches and zombies and vampires, but no chosen. If there's any night they'd prowl among the humans, this would be it. I've spent hours drifting from club to club, searching for the real monsters beneath the elaborate costumes. A silver sequined mask is my only concession to the holiday, though my hunting blacks and black leather jacket seem to blend in well enough. Disgusted with my futile quest, I decide to check out the Cat Club for one last look before heading out of the city to hunt. The place is packed. The pungent clove oil I dabbed on my face and throat, reinforced by that in my locket, is doing its job, and though I'm wading through living bodies pulsing with human blood, I'm able to keep my reactions to it at bay. I spot a gap next to the wall and work my way through the crowd to lay claim to it. A couple to my right, dressed as a gothic Raggedy Ann and Andy, ease back to give me a little more room, and I settle in against the crudely mortared brick. A black-caped figure to my left turns and regards me with eyes dark as night. He flashes me a leering grin, his yellowish fangs in sharp contrast to the white of his teeth. My breath catches, then slowly escapes. They're fake. His fangs are fake. Plastic. I'm tempted to show him mine. Rolling my eyes, I turn away and stare out at the masquerade madness convulsing through the club. The feel of the air surrounding us abruptly changes. I look toward the door and stop breathing altogether. A stir ripples through the masses as 4 costumed figures enter, drawing every gaze in the club. Their elegant 17th century garments appear to be the real thing, with details that only my eyes are likely to pick out in the dim light. But it's not the costumes that have stolen my breath.